Hi, welcome to Board Game Express. Today we're going to set up and teach Castles of Burgundy. Now, in Castles of Burgundy, players are going to each be in charge of their own estate, and you're going to be racing each other with these dice in order to pick up tiles to build in your estate. And basically you'll be rewarded for doing so a little faster and in particular patterns when you finish out regions, and you're competing for victory points in that manner. Now, to set up your game, first go ahead and separate out all the tiles according to the color on their back. There's going to be 6 basic colors and then a black, which represents the black market in the middle of the board. So just have those set out. You're going to have a supply of what are called silverlings and a supply of workers. And then these square tiles are called goods, and you're going to want to put 5 of each into these 5 phases of the game, and they'll be set out here as we play. And then give each player a random draw of 3 of these goods. Now, if you check out a player board, you'll notice that there is room for 3 different types of goods. The goods will be numbered 1 through 6. And if you get 3 different goods, you'll just set them in your 3 different compartments. And if you were lucky enough to draw 2 of the same or even 3 of the same one, you'll just go ahead and stack them in one section over here. Basically, what this is showing you is that each player can only hold 3 different types of the 6 goods at any one time. All right, now have everyone choose a color and determine start player. So let's say Bluey's first, Ms. Green is second, Red's third. And then everyone will take their 2 dice. Everyone will get 1 silverling to start the game. And the first player is going to get 1 worker, second player will get 2, and the third player will get 3 workers to compensate for turn order. And everyone gets 0 victory points. All right, so that'll be the setup. Oh, and one last thing, there are a bunch of bonus tiles that get put at the top right and bottom right of the board. Those will be awarded during the game. All right, so let's talk about how to play. Now, the flow of the game is that there are going to be 5 phases, phases A through E, and in each phase, you're going to have 5 rounds. So, to start off a phase, go ahead and clear out all unused tiles from the previous phase. Now, of course, you're not going to need to do this in turn 1 because you haven't had a turn yet. And then take the stack of goods and then lay them out for everyone to see. All right, so now at the beginning of round 1, have everyone roll their dice. So let's pretend I already did that. And then one person will roll the white die. And all that this die is going to do is it's going to tell you in which of these 6 spaces to place the first good. So this is sort of a round marker, if you will. So this will go in space number 4. All right, now you're ready to do your main actions. In turn order, so whoever's furthest on the right on the shipping track right here, and if it's a tie, whoever's on top will go first. So Blue is going to be able to do 2 actions using his dice. So he's got a 4 and a 2. Let's talk about what you can do with them. You can see your 4 actions on the bottom right of your player board right here. The first thing you can do is you can spend a die to take one of the tiles off of the board. Oh, and by the way, I should mention I did not set up every single tile just so that you can see what the numbers underneath mean. You will only want to cover the tiles with the matching color for the player count. So in a 2-player game, you'll cover all the 2s. In a 3-player game, you'll cover the 3s as well. And only in a 4-player game will you cover everything. I have not covered everything intentionally just so that you can sort of see what's happening. So the first action you can do is you can spend a die to take one of the tiles off of the board and add it to your storage. So for example, you spend a 4, you can take one of the tiles here, and then throw it into your storage over here. Now, you will notice you only have 3 spaces in your storage. If you ever are full, you are still allowed to take another tile, but you do have to throw something away. That is, of course, not something you want to do very often. All right, the second thing you can do with your dice is you can play a tile from your storage onto your estate, onto your board. Now, when you do that, you have to, 2 things have to match. First, the number has to match. So in order to play something, I only have a 2 right now. I have to play on a space that says 2. So for example, this thing. Also, of course, the color has to match. You have to play your blue tiles where you see blue spaces, you have to play your yellow where you see yellow, etc. And the third thing that actually has to happen is you start the game, everyone will, with one estate in the very center of your board. That's pretty much there to get you started. Whatever else you place has to touch from whatever you already have on the board. So in the beginning, you'll only be allowed to build in the 6 spaces immediately surrounding this starting castle. So I would be, with a 2, allowed to put this blue guy here, and that's the second thing you can do with your die. So you can take a tile, or you can place a tile. The third thing you can do with your tile is to ship one of your stacks of goods. Now to do so, you have to use a die of the matching number. So here I would either have to do a 4 or a 1. And when you do a shipping action, you will be rewarded with 1 silverling. So this is 1 silverling no matter how many things you ship. And then you will get victory points equal to the player count for everything you ship. So had I used a 1, I would only ship this 1 object. I would get, so for a 3-player game like this, I would get 3 victory points, and then I'd get a silverling as compensation, and then this good is shipped away. If I were to use a 4, I would ship these 2 objects, and I would get 3 points each, so I'd get 6 points, take 1 silverling, and I'd flip them into the shipped pile. And that would free up another slot for you to take more goods in the future. All right. That was the third thing, that's shipping. The fourth and final thing you can do with a die is sort of a kind of a pass in a way. If you can't do anything that you want, you can spend the die to get 2 more workers into your supply. Now, what these things are for, you'll notice that they're printed with a -1, +1 on them. You can probably imagine you can spend workers to modify the value of one of your die before you use it. You can use any number of these, so if you wanted to spend 2 to change a 2 to a 4, you can do that. Workers can also flip a die across these 6-1 borders, so you can use a +1 to turn a 6 into a 1, you can use a -1 to flip it back to a 6 if you want. It lets you go around the entire circle. Alright, so those are the 4 actions. Take something, play a tile, spend to trigger a goods sale, and get some workers. Now, the other thing you can do on your turn as sort of a bonus, and that's where this is printed right here, is 1 time during your entire turn, so your entire round would constitute both of your dice, you can spend 2 silverlings to take one of the tiles from the black market and add it to your storage. So I've only put out 3 of these. In a 3-player game, you'd have, what is that, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these out. So spend 2 silverlings, you can take one of choice, put it in storage, kind of like a free action in a way. Alright, so now that you know all the actions, let's sort of talk about the one where all the action happens. The placing a tile is where you're going to get all of the rewards, and sort of is the point of this exercise of the entire game. So let's talk about what happens when you place a tile. Now, the game has 6 different types of tiles, 6 different colors. The first is the blue. These are the ships. So when you place a ship, so that's actually what I did in the example earlier, then 2 things are going to happen. First, the ship is going to bump you on the turn order track. So the moment you place a ship down, let's say blue did that, you would move up on turn order track. And if you wound up, so let's say someone was ahead of you, if you wind up moving on top of someone, you would actually go on top, and that also means you would go ahead of them for the following round. So in this way, you kind of end up leapfrogging each other a lot during the game. The second thing that happens is you can look at the board in the 6 what are called goods depots, and you can take potentially all the goods in any one spot. So this would be, in this case, there's only 1 available. It's the first round of the game. And since blue does have an open cargo slot, you can put it here, like that. Now, if, like the red player, all of the... Oh, actually, red player has the same color. So if it had been red who had placed the boat, he would simply stack a second one onto that one. And if you look at the green player over here, green player does not have a matching one. So that means the green player, in this case, all 3 slots are full. He would not be able to take one. He'd just be out of luck. So that's what you get for placing a boat. Next is the dark green. These are castles, and you do start the game with a castle. It has no effect. It's just sort of there in the beginning. The only castle spots at the beginning of the game are up north, right up here. So it takes a little bit of time to get a castle down. If you place a castle down, then you get a free action of whatever it is you want. It's probably easiest to think of this as you get a virtual die of any number you want. And you can use that die to either take something, to play a tile, or you can also use it to ship. You would not use it to take workers. That's generally not going to be the action you want. So the castle is very powerful in that when you place one, it's one free action. Do whatever it is you think you need. Now, mines are the gray. When you place a mine down, it does not have an immediate effect. I'll explain what this does at the end of the phase. Next are the light greens. These are the livestock. Now, livestock are slightly fancier. When you play livestock into the spaces, they will immediately trigger points. And it triggers based on what you already have on the board. So let's pretend that we're somewhat closer to the middle of the game, and I'm going to put a couple of things down. So, all right, so I'll put down some chickens, and I'll put down some cows over here, and then let's say I'll put down some cows over here as well. So let's say you had already done that, and now you are about to put out another set of cows over here. So whenever you put down an animal, what will happen is you will score that animal type, every single one that you have placed in the entire pasture. So if I were to put this 4 cow tile down right now, what would happen is I would look at this pasture and I would say, well, there's already a 2 cow over there. So I would actually score 2 plus 4. The placement of this tile immediately scores me 6 victory points. Now, the chicken in the pasture does not count because it's a different animal. And the cow over here way in the corner does not count because it's not in the same pasture. So placing an animal, you get to score that tile plus all the exact same type of the previously placed that's in the same pasture. As you can imagine, you will want, in a large pasture like this, you will want to play the same animal over and over again, so you're going to be tripping that score over and over again. So that's what these guys are for. All right, next is the buildings. These are sort of the beigeish color, and these are a little more complex because there are 8 different types of buildings. And probably, if you are not familiar with the game, the easiest thing to do is if you can learn the iconography on each one, that would be great. If not, it's probably easier just to use the reference in the rules book. It will simply tell you what each of the 8 buildings do when you put them down. But basically, each of the buildings generally does one of the actions. Some of them allow you to pick up a tile off the board. Some of them allow you to place. Some of them will give you workers or silverlings. One of the buildings allows you to do a free shipping action. And one of the buildings is actually kind of boring. It just gives you 4 victory points. So whatever the building is, just look up what it does, and as soon as you place it, you get to that effect. Now, the thing to kind of be aware of, there is a restriction on buildings that isn't there for anything else. You'll notice that buildings, the beige color, they're kind of all over the place. So at the start of the map, you're going to have a 1 here, a triple here, you're going to have a zone here, a zone here. Each region can only have 1 building of that type. So if I have, say, already placed the building called a bank here, then I can play more banks, but I just would have to play them in the other regions. I will not be allowed to play a second bank in the same region. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're playing out your board. You can't duplicate an exact building type in the same building region. All right, and the 6th color type is sort of the light green. These are what are called the knowledge tiles, or some people call them texts. They are also much more complicated. I have played this game many times. I still usually have to, if I can remember the iconography, great, but half the time I have to go back to the book anyway to see what it does. They generally fall into 2 categories. Some of these give you a passive power. So sort of a, while this is in play, once you've played it, it might enhance an action. So for example, maybe every time you ship, you get not only a silverling, but a worker as well. That's an example of one of the tiles. Another tile might be every time you try and place a particular type of tile, you can modify your die plus or minus 1 to make the placement easier. The second type of knowledge tile is endgame victory point tiles. So for example, one of them might say for every type of animal you own at the end of the game, or another one might say for every type of good you have shipped during the game, you will score this number of points. So just kind of go to the book and reference them. That'll be the easiest thing to do. All right, so those are the 4 actions that you can do. Take something, place something, ship, and sort of pass and get 2 workers. Well, now you will repeat this process for each round. So roll the white die again, right? Get a 2, place this guy out in the mirror, place this guy out in the 2. Repeat, whoever happens to be first, do both your actions. Next player, do both your actions, do both your actions. You rinse and repeat until you have completed all 5 rounds. At the end of 5 rounds, your phase is over, and at this point, every mine will give you 1 silverling. So remember earlier we said mines don't do anything when you play them. Well, that's basically why. They are for collecting. At the end of the entire phase, you will collect a silverling. I do want to kind of point out that you will notice that since the game ends after 5 phases and the 25th round, you will still get a silverling, but that silverling's not going to do anything. All right, almost done. Finally, the last sort of thing to understand about the scoring is that you will notice that each of the sections of your board have these colored regions, and the reason they're set up like that is that you get rewarded for completely finishing out a region. So for example, this region here consists of 3 blue. This region here is just a single base, so that's a single building will complete the region. A triple estate over here, or triple castle. So here's what happens. As soon as you finish a region, so let's just say, for example, I were to play out 3 shipping tiles right here, you will immediately score a bonus according to 2 things. 1, you'll get a bonus for the current phase that you accomplished it. So if you were to finish a region during phase A, right in the beginning of the game, that'll be an extra 10 points. That's a lot. And then later on, it will go down to 2. So if you finish something just before the game ends, it's only a 2-point bonus. The second thing is you will get another bonus based on the size of the region you have just finished. So it's basically a triangular. If you finish a 1 region, you get 1 point. If you finish a 2-size region, actually this board I don't even think has a 2-size region, but you'll score 1 plus 2, 3 points. If you finish a 3-size region, you'll get 1 plus 2 plus 3. So 6 points, 10 points, 15, etc., etc. So you are rewarded for finishing a larger region. You are also rewarded for finishing a region sooner. And finally, the bonus tiles. As you finish regions, if you finish off an entire color, so for example, the livestock region, there's a 5 here and there's a 1 region here. If you are the first player to finish off the entire color, you will be rewarded with, oh, no, this one's the green one. You will be rewarded with this bonus tile. And it will give you 5, 6, or 7 points immediately, depending on whether you're playing a 2, 3, or 4-player game. So once again, it is based on player count. The second player to finish that color will get the little one and score 2, 3, or 4 points. And so that is it for the scoring of the bonus. And now, at the end of the game, you go through 5 phases, 5 turns each. If you have any leftover goods, they will get you a little bit. So every silverling you don't use is 1 point. Every pair of workers you don't use is 1 point. And every goods tile that you did not ship is 1 point. So if you had 3 of these left over, you get 3 points. And finally, score any of the knowledge tiles that are endgame specific. So you're just going to have to count each of them up as is. And player with the most points wins. And the tie break is going to be whoever has the most spaces filled in, or it's probably easier to count the fewest empty spaces left. And if that's still a tie, then whoever's last in turn order is going to win. All right, now you know how to play Castles of Burgundy.